What's the difference between football and basketball? Well, I know you have a quarterback and I think a linebacker, the 50-yard or 60-yard liner is supposed to be a good location to watch the game. And the goal is to get the most points, and there's 11 players on each team, and you have a football made out of pigskin. Football is played during the fall and winter months, and they play on turf. Now, with basketball, you have 5 to 9 players per team. You have defense and offense. They play in an enclosed arena on wood flooring. They wear shorts, but no other protection, unlike football players who wear helmets, shoulder pads, and a mouth gear. And the goal is to get the most points in the basket without getting fouled out. And the referee wears a black and white shirt. Now, for you guys that know anything about football, I am certain my assessment of the sport was irritating and frustrating. And for some of y'all, you might not want to even go to the game with me. I get it, I'm not upset. Well, that's the same thing when it comes to law. If you don't know the arena or the players, trying to handle your own case can not only be irritating for you, but also for all the parties involved, but it can also have devastating results. So today we will be discussing what to know if you must go to court alone. The differences between family law and father's rights law, the effects of being an absentee father both to the children as well as the father, and the benefits of fatherhood. And at the end, I will give you a few legal nuggets that may be helpful to you if you must go to court alone. So, pull up a chair with your favorite snack, get a pad and pencil, and get ready to learn. But before we get started, here is our disclaimer. The information provided here shall not be construed as legal advice, nor does any communication with the host or guest shall be construed as an attorney-client relationship. Similarly, any information provided is not protected by client-attorney confidentiality. If you're in need of legal representation, you should contact an attorney in your area. Now let's jump into today's episode. In a nutshell, family law concerns issues that govern the dissolution of the family nucleus. This is because, in theory, in a family, everyone should be able to work out their differences, right? It is when the family cannot work out their differences when the court, or in some cases, the Office of Child Support Services, step in to make decisions for the family. Most people don't like that. With that being said, family law can include divorce, alimony, and if there are children involved, custody, child support, and visitation. Now, this is a very simplified list of what family law entails. Each case dictates more specific issues like division of property, assets, debts, and decision making authority. The list goes on and on and on. If the father is not married to the mom when the child was born, it can become even more complicated. For instance, a child born outside of wedlock is considered illegitimate or a bastard, and the father is considered the putative or presumptive father. And in practice, a putative father does not have rights to the child or children. However, a putative father does have a financial responsibility to a child. Now, I paused because this is an oxymoron and it is not the law. It is the practice, however, which makes it even more difficult. Now, in Georgia, a putative father shall register or should register with the putative father registry if he believes he may be the father of a child that was born out of wedlock. Failure to do so, however, does not preclude a dad from establishing legal rights to his child or children. The process in which to do this is called legitimation, which, depending on some circumstances, can be challenging if not impossible. The legitimation process, in my opinion, is wholly unadulterated, hogwash, archaic, and discriminatory. And although there is state law, at least in the state of Georgia, that support this practice, I do not, and I don't think the federal law supports it either. And this is because there is federal law that has addressed this issue, at least in part. Now, we won't discuss this issue today, but I promise we will in future episodes. But I will say this. In cases where the parents are unwed and a child is born, mom is automatically assumed to have rights to the child, right? But dad is not. And as long as I have been alive, men cannot carry a child, cannot become pregnant, nor can they give birth. So essentially, men are being punished because of their anatomy. They have to jump through hoops like legitimation to prove that they should have the same or similar rights as a mother. And in my opinion, this is just not fair. There was a 1972 federal case that dealt with this issue called Stanley v. Illinois. Now, this case has been picked apart many times over since the federal court's ruling, but it is still relevant today. I've used this case in some of my cases, and some judges were aware of it and they were okay with it, and there were some that were not. This is a topic we will discuss in great details in future episodes. Now, what is father's rights and what is it different? Father's right law encompasses everything that family law does, but it also concerns a father's basic right to visitation, custody, the child's upbringing, decision making authority like schooling and education, religion, extracurricular activity, and medical treatment, access to school and medical records, and the right for the child to inherit from dad. These rights are relevant to all fathers, whether the child was born inside or outside of the marriage. But as I've said earlier, to attain or exercise these rights, it becomes particularly more difficult for unwed fathers. This is because the father of children born during a marriage is the presumptive legal father. He does not have to legitimate, and he has, for all intents and purposes, the same rights as mom. It is when the family nucleus breaks down and you are now in court that dads must fight harder at times than mom. The effects of being an absentee father. According to fathers.org, children of father absent homes account for 71% of all high school dropouts, 90% of all become homeless and runaway, and 63% of all youth suicides. Also, there is a higher rate of homelessness, poverty, drug addiction, and incarceration. Now, there's not much information on the effects on fathers who have been absent in their children's lives, but there is a lot of discussion from nursing home owners and workers that men, especially black men in their late 40s and 50s, are now moving into nursing homes at record high because of their failure to establish relationships with their children or have healthy relationship with their spouses or ex-spouses and girlfriends or other family members. And as a result, they have become ill and there's no one to take care of them. Why is father's rights so important? According to the same source, when fathers are involved, children are 2 times more likely to go to college, 80% less likely to spend time in jail, and for girls, 75% less likely to become pregnant. Fatherhood is also beneficial to men as well. According to beingaparent.com, the overall health of men positively increases when they become fathers, like lower levels of testosterone, which reduces the risk of prostate cancer and higher cholesterol levels. They become more responsible and become better financial savers and planners, just to name a few. Additionally, active fathers share the parental responsibility and financial obligation of raising children, which overall helps mom. So being an active father has great benefits for the child, the mom, and dad as well. Now, as I promised, here are a few legal nuggets, what to know before you go to court. First thing, if you can, please retain an attorney. It is not recommended that you go to court alone to represent yourself. This is because most people do not know the legal arena or the players, kind of like I don't know anything about football or basketball. If it's not possible to retain a lawyer, then please consult with an attorney about your case. A consultation allows you to actually speak with the attorney, usually between 30 minutes to an hour, about your case. And during the conversation, you generally have an opportunity to ask specific questions that may affect you or your case, discuss legal strategies, review documents, which will help to gain insight in your case and upcoming hearings. If, for whatever reason, you're unable to retain a lawyer, or after you have consulted with the lawyer, you must represent yourself, you should know who the courtroom players are. So, here they are. What is a complaint or petition? A complaint or petition is the document that starts a lawsuit. For example, a petition for divorce or a complaint for divorce, a complaint for visitation or petition for visitation, a complaint for child support or petition for child support. I think you get an idea what I'm talking about, right? What are parties? Parties are the persons that either bring the lawsuit or defends against the lawsuit. Parties are either petitioner or plaintiff, or defendant or respondent. A plaintiff or petitioner is a person that petitions the court for something. They're the ones that brought the lawsuit. A defendant or respondent is the person that responds or defends against the lawsuit. What is a pro se litigant? A pro se litigant is a person that represents himself or herself. He or she can be either the petitioner or the defendant. He is not represented by an attorney. And in law, we have a saying, an attorney for a client is a fool. So it is not recommended that you represent yourself. What is a guardian ad litem? A guardian ad litem is an individual that represents the child's best interest, and a guardian ad litem is generally appointed by the court. What is a child advocate? A child advocate is the child's attorney. The child advocate does what the child wants. What is the difference between the child advocate and a guardian ad litem? As discussed earlier, the guardian ad litem does not represent the child. The guardian ad litem represents the child's best interest and is appointed by the court, and the child advocate represents what the child wants. So, for instance, if the child wants to live with dad, the child advocate must advocate for the child to live with dad. However, if dad has unstable housing and the mom does not, the guardian ad litem may advocate for the child to live with mom because mom has more stable housing. And in that case, that child will have better housing. What is a staff attorney? A staff attorney is generally an attorney on the judge's staff. He or she helps the judge with legal research, write orders, resolve conflict between attorneys, and act as a liaison or a go-between the attorneys and the judge. What is a calendar? A calendar is a list of cases that is on a piece of paper or papers that are set to be heard on a particular day. For example, if you're ever in court and you see a judge reading from a set of papers or even a sheet of paper and is reading off the name of the cases, that is called a calendar. What is a calendar clerk? Generally, a calendar clerk can be a civil or criminal calendar clerk. The calendar clerk will place cases on the calendar for which the judge should hear on a particular day. What is a court reporter or stenographer? A court reporter or stenographer types down what is being said during court. So, for example, if you're ever in court and you see an individual sitting close to the judge and they're typing on a device, that is the court reporter. That person is taking down everything what is being said in court. So, for example, if you're having a hearing or an argument or any type of communication, that person is typing it down. What is a record? A record is a transcript which can be both oral or written of what happens in court. So, for example, again, if you have a hearing or any type of argument or anything that's in court, there might be a recording device or the stenographer taking down the record. What is a transcript? A transcript is a written document of what happened in court. Using the previous example, where there is a hearing or argument, the transcript will actually transcribe or write out exactly word for word of what transpired in court. What is a bailiff or deputy? A bailiff or deputy is generally a uniformed officer that maintains order in the courtroom. He or she is the one that you would see that tell you to take your hat off, turn off your phones or put them on silent, no eating in court. and things like that. What is a jury? A jury is a group of 6 or 12 people that were selected to hear a case and to make a decision as to guilty or not guilty, liable or not liable. This panel of people are regular citizens who live in the county where the case is taking place and are registered voters. The registered voter list is where the names and addresses come from. What is a judge? A judge is a person that sits on the bench, usually in a black robe, that decides cases when it's not a jury and issue orders or other proclamations. In most cases, a judge must have been a practicing or licensed attorney at some point. In Georgia, depending on the county and court, a judge does not have to have had any legal training or ever practiced law or even have ever gone to law school. Now, if you're unable to take down these definitions, or if I went too fast, don't worry. You can rewind it and listen again, or you can get a free copy of this list, which will be available next week on our website at thefathersadvocate.com. Well, this brings us to the end of our second episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. You were encouraged and inspired, and you learned something new and helpful. As always, you're not in this alone. Don't stop fighting. Your children do need you. Please join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. wherever you listen to podcasts, or on our YouTube channel next Monday. Until then, this is your Father's Advocate, Attorney Hughes.